Well, we're actually going to use a tool in the shop that I don't think we've used yet. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining us. So I want to kick this video off by sharing a little story with you guys. I had a viewer reach out to me. They were having some issues with an Arc Captain welder that they bought. They were having trouble figuring out how to get it to weld. He reached out to me. He asked me if maybe I could help him figure it out. So I said, well, we can try. I don't know, I don't know what I can do, but I'd be glad to help you. So anyway, I got out to the shop to where I could hook my machine up and we could kind of compare what was going on. Turns out that one of the DINS connectors that's up underneath where the MIG gun is, he just happened to miss plugging that in. So he was able to plug that in and sparks flew.
I just wanted to say that, gee, you're beautiful. It's funny, I had so much to say, and now I can't think of a darn thing. Where was I?
My point in sharing this story is a couple reasons. First of all, if you buy an Arc Captain, just remember that those DINS connectors have to be connected into the DINS plugs underneath where the MIG gun attaches. If you don't have both of those attached, then the welder may not weld because you're not completing the circuit. So that's the first thing. The second thing is this viewer, after I helped him out, kind of caught me off guard because I got a package in the mail today and it was a package from him. He sent me a couple things, box of chocolates, which is made right here in the great state of Utah, and they're delicious. He sent me a thank you card and it says, hey Stuart, I just wanted to say thanks for helping me with my welder, Scott. The other thing he sent me really caught me off guard. This Ziploc baggie, and it has a post-it note on it. So the post-it note says, this is one of my patches that I wore on my uniform, and the challenge coin was given to someone that goes above and beyond. Thank you, my friend. I was kind of caught off guard by this because for him to give me this, I'm completely flattered and very appreciative. So this is the patch that he sent me, and I believe he was retired from the Box Elder County Sheriff Department, and I thought he said he put in like 30 years. So I thought that was pretty amazing. And he also sent me this challenge coin. Golly, I'm just kind of speechless. I don't know what to say. The first thing I will say is thank you, Scott. I appreciate the gift. It was not necessary. I was glad to help you, and I'm glad you got your welder working. The other thing I want to say is I'm extremely grateful for the men and women in uniform that protect this country. We're able to enjoy the freedoms and this beautiful place that we live because those people put on that uniform and keep us safe. And I can't imagine how hard it is in today's day and age to have to put that uniform on with all of the backlash and the flack that they take. I just want to say how grateful I am for those people that do that job, because I'm sure that it is not an easy job, and I'm grateful there's people that are willing to do it. So thank you to all those law enforcement officers out there. Again, thanks to the military, thanks to all those people that allow us to live the life that we get to live, and we get to live it. I just wanted to throw that out there. Once again, Scott, thank you. I really appreciate it. So let's get started with the video. All right, so I've got a 6-inch piece of 2-inch 316 stainless round bar here, and we're going to machine a new sleeve for that pump that we dismantled. The tricky part about this project It's not too crazy on the one end of this. So the OD isn't complicated at all. It's just we'll have to hold a dimension and then we'll have to machine the ID. But if you look on this side, there's actually about a 1-inch counter bore there, and there's a keyway here. Hopefully you can see that keyway. So we're gonna have to machine that, and to get that keyway in there, we've got to broach it. And I don't believe we've ever used our arbor press on the channel. I've used it to press some bearings and things like that, but I haven't used it to broach on the channel yet. So if you've never seen how people broach a keyway, this will be one you'll want to stick around for. So let's go ahead, and I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on the machining side of the sleeve. It's pretty straightforward. The OD is already machined. I will clean up the outside just a little bit. We'll have to bore it out, and then we'll machine our counter bore, and then we should be ready to broach it. So I'll get some video while I'm running the lathe of how I machine a piece like this. This one should be pretty straightforward, pretty quick. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, guys, so hopefully you can hear me okay. Bridger's cleaning up some parts in the background, so hopefully that's not too distracting, but I got a lot of things going on and I gotta have a few things going on at once. So, all right, so we'll go ahead and we'll get this chucked up in the lathe. So the first thing I wanna do is face this off. So when I say face it off, I wanna machine the face. I wanna get it flat. All right, so we're gonna face this off. I'm just gonna touch off, take enough that I can clean up that face, get the bandsaw marks off of it. You can see I am cutting with fluid. For a long time I didn't cut with any fluid on the lathe. I would use oil if I was drilling something, but I never used fluid while I was just making a cut. And I'll tell you what, I don't know why, because it has made a huge difference. You're able to get a lot nicer cut. It doesn't heat up the material. It doesn't heat up your tooling. Your tooling lasts a lot longer because of that. So it can be a little bit of a mess if you don't manage it correctly, but it's worth the little bit of a mess that it does make. Okay, so we're all faced off. It looks good. So now I'm ready to grab a center drill and drill a hole in the center of that. If you've never seen a center drill, this is what they look like. So I'm just going to put that in my chuck. Stainless is really hard, and so you're better off going slow. So right now I'm going about 115 RPM. I'm going to get the fluid going again. Sometimes these center drills can be a little bit difficult to start, but once you get cutting, they go pretty good. So the point of the center drill is to give your bit a center point to start cutting, because we're gonna bore this out. So we're gonna put a drill bit in here, and then we're gonna drill completely through this. So there's what it looks like when you hit it with a center drill. So now we're ready to grab a drill bit. Okay, so now I've got a 1 1/16 drill bit here. It's got a Morse taper on it. That's what this is called. And it fits into my tailstock here. So this is the tailstock. So I'll take this bit, make sure it's locked into my tailstock here, and we're ready to start drilling this. This is going to be a little bit of a tedious process. So I'll show you a little bit, but then I'll probably turn the camera off because it's going to take a while. Okay, I think we're I think we're getting to the bottom of our, it usually smooths out. It might wobble a little bit at first, but then usually when you get to the bottom of your center drill, it smooths out a little bit and you can start hogging a lot more material. So hopefully you guys can hear that. But you can hear it cutting in there. Music to my ears. Okay, so I'm just taking my handle on my tailstock here. I'm just going slow, drilling this out. So we're just using the drill bit to get the ID close, and then we'll come back with a boring bar and we'll machine it down. And this, the ID of this has to be perfect, because this gets pressed on to the pump shaft, and if you make it too big, you're screwed, you're done. For something like this, lucky for us, we have something we can take a measurement on. The ID of that one is 1.253. It's actually about 3/1000ths bigger than 1 1/4 inches. All right guys, we're back out here today. We did get this bored out. I ran a few passes through it with this skinnier boring bar, but you can see how much bigger in diameter this one is than that one. You always want to use the biggest boring bar possible, because it's less likely to give you any sort of resonance or chatter or vibration. So we've got our bigger boring bar on here. I believe this is a 1-inch boring bar. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to chip away at this. We'll just keep taking passes until we're to the right diameter. I've measured this one. It's 3/1000ths over 1 3/8 inches. So it's 1.378. 1.378. That's the size we're going for. And right now we're sitting 1.185. A little less than 100 thou. So we'll go ahead and keep working at this. If you do get chatter when you're doing something like this, the rule of thumb is slow your lathe down and increase your depth of cut. And so take a deeper cut at a slower speed, and that should get rid of the vibration. You kind of have to find that sweet spot, but that's the rule of thumb. So let's see if we can get this to where it'll run smooth. I'm just going to touch it off. Okay, so I touched off there. Let's try 40 thou, see if that vibrates, see if it chatters. Oh, that's cutting pretty good. Ooh, sounds good. It's cutting pretty good, getting a little resonance there, but it's not bad. It's not bad. We'll keep boring this out with this boring bar until we get to our 1.258. 1.258. And we got to be right on the money on this one. We can't be too big and we can't be too small. This is a crucial measurement. It's getting pressed on a shaft, so it has to be perfect. So the other thing you want to make sure you do is you don't want to take your measurements if it's blistering hot, because after it cools down, it'll actually shrink a little bit. And if you take a measurement while it's hot, it gives you a false reading, basically a false measurement. So you want to make sure you cut it and measure it when it's cool. So if we have to stop and let it cool and then take our measurement, we'll do that. But we'll get this bored out. When we get to the point where we're ready to show you something interesting, we'll come back to you. All right guys, we're back. It's been a couple days. Got a bunch of other stuff going on in the shop here. We did get the bore done on the same side that we're gonna have to machine the keyway. So that side's done. Now we've got to flip this around in our chuck, and we've got to machine this down to this diameter. You can see it only goes like 1 inch, and then it goes to a larger borameter. Wow. I'm gonna start using that word. I just invented a new word, borameter. So you can see it goes to a larger diameter there. So that's what we're gonna do now. Borameter. Let there be light. All right, so our depth on this other bore needs to be, looks like 4.625. 4.625. I'm going to write that down. I always like to write it down so that I don't forget or mix it up or get it wrong, because I have done it several times. I'm actually going to mark 4.625 on here and run it to 0. You can do it either way. You can run to 0, or you can mark it and run to your measurement. I'm going to run to 0. We're going to go to 100. We're going to cut 100 thou off this, and then we'll check our measurement again. I've been going 40 to 50 thou. So we're going to cut this, and we're going to go to 0 on the DRO. Alright guys, we're on our finish pass here. We're taking 7 thou. We're running 115 RPM on the lathe, and I've got it on the faster cut speed here, the faster feed speed. Probably going to be a minute, so when we get this cut to diameter, we'll come back and give you guys a look. Alright guys, we got our final pass done, and I've got this right on the money. It did take a significant amount of time to get that diameter perfect, but I'd rather take a long time and get it perfect than screw it up. Okay, so the only thing left to do here is we're going to chamfer our corners. And I like to chamfer my corners for a couple reasons. It gets rid of the burr for one, so you don't slice your hand or the mechanic that's going to install it. The other reason I like to chamfer the corners is it makes it look complete. It makes it look neat. It makes it look like you care. Chamfer on that, feels good. I do believe we're going to have to hit the outside with some emery cloth, take like 1.5 thou off, but we'll do that very last. I'll be able to chuck it from the inside, and we'll do that last. So everything looks good. See, we got our counter bore done. All that's left to do is to broach it. So we'll meet you guys over at the broach. Okay guys, we're on to the next step. I've got another situation here. So when you broach something, you have a plug like this. I think it's actually called a broach plug. This one came in my set, so it's machined to a specific dimension, like 1.25" or 1 5/16" or whatever. The depth on the key seat in this one is 5 thousandths too shallow. I know a lot of you probably think 5 thousandths isn't much, but with a keyway, it could make a difference, especially because this specific key seat on the sleeve, I believe it uses a Woodruff key. So we want to make sure that it's as snug as possible, and I want to make sure the dimensions match the factory sleeve as close as possible. With the way that I have to broach this one, I can't just drive the broach down a certain length and then back it back out, because that will give me a tapered cut. We have to have a square cut. So I'm going to machine 5 thousandths off the bottom of this. That way I'll be able to stick the broach in the plug, drive the broach through without using a shim, and that should give me the exact measurement, which is 50 thousandths on the depth. That'll make more sense once I show you guys how it's all set up and once we get over to the arbor press. But little curveball here, so we're dealing with this. So we're going to machine this out. Once we get this machined out, we'll go over to the arbor press and we'll see if we can broach this finally. So we're centered in our vise. I've used my dial indicator to make sure that it's square this way and level this way to the machine. It's good that way, and it's plumb this way. The slot is plumb. So now all I've got to do is touch off and drop it 5/1000ths and run a pass. So here we go. I always like to make sure this is going to behave. Once in a while it likes to throw a fit. Little oil. Okay, so hopefully you can see that slot. It's nice and shiny. So it looks like it made a good cut. Looks consistent. We're gonna go over and measure it now, see if it's deep enough. So I've actually had to make a lot of these custom plugs. You know, if you've got a bore on a shaft that is some crazy size like 1.843 and you need to cut an internal keyway, you can cut an internal keyway on a lathe. You just use the carriage and put a tool in and it'll just shave a little bit off, and you just continue to move in until you're to the depth you need. But this is a lot easier, a lot cleaner if you have the equipment, as long as you don't have to modify everything like I always do. Alright, so you can see I just slide the plug in there. So we got that far to go. Now, each one of these teeth cuts about 2 thousandths, 2 to 3 thousandths off. Ready? Woo! Okay guys, we're over here at the arbor press. If you've never seen one, this is your introduction. I've got my sleeve here, got my plug. I'm going to slide that in. Then I'm going to run my broach through here. That's going to cut the internal keyway. I'm going to run this ram up. We'll get our broach in. Okay, now you want to make sure you use cutting oil here. So I'm going to oil up these teeth. Good. Can never use too much oil when you're cutting. Then I take my handle. I'm just gonna drive this down. So like I said, each tooth is cut about 2 or 3 thousandths. So just keep driving that through, and I don't want to drop my broach on the floor, so I'm gonna catch it. Okay. Okay, so I know we're not deep enough, so I'm gonna have to measure that. All right, so we got one more pass here. I've built, I'm sure you guys love this, I built my own little shim. This is actually what they look like. It's just a little piece of material that's bent on a 90, and I'll show you how it works. So you take your plug, drop your plug back in, drop your broach back in, but you put your shim behind it like so. So you can see I've slid my shim behind the broach there. That's going to push the broach further into the material. Okay, I've lined it up with the keyway, so we should be good. So now we're going to oil this baby back up, and we'll continue to, whoa, and we'll continue to cut this. Here we go. Oh yeah. She's cut. Okay, so then I'll pull my broach down through. We got ourselves a keyway cut. So now I just need to check my measurement to see if I need to cut another shim right at 1.3. We need to go about 5 thou. Okay, so I got a 30 thousandth shim here. Homemade, best kind. Put our plug in. Match up the broach with the keyway. We're going to get our shim in place before we get too far. Okay. All right. Oil. Goodness. Oh yeah. Should be there. All right. We're just polishing this with some emery cloth. We've already done the one side. We're gonna go ahead and do this side. Get it all cleaned up. When we get to that point where it's all done, we'll come back to you. But I've got to take about a 1,000th, about 1,000th of an inch off to match the other one. So I'm just gonna hit it with some emery and we'll come back to you when it's done. I always make sure I have a long enough piece of emery cloth that I don't have to get my hands in there where the chuck could hit them or it could suck my arm in if something weird happened. So I always try to get a long enough piece of emery that that's not a concern. So I think we're there. So let's give you guys a look here at the final countdown. You can see right there, I think it was a bearing that was on it. It smoked that thing. 316 stainless. You see we got our keyway cut. There's the keyway. There's our keyway. There's a little bit of a mark in there where the broach hit it, just right in here, but it's not a big deal. It's just a kind of a scratch, but that's okay. So I think we're good. All right, so that's gonna wrap this one up. Hopefully you guys learned something. I know there's probably quite a few people out there that have never broached anything or have ever seen anything broached. Now hopefully you got an understanding of what the process is like to do that. So hopefully you guys learned something new. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one. And you need to cut an internal keyway. You can cut an internal key seat